gentlemen, our moderator today is our member, Miss Erina Nafula, who is the head of pre-sales engineering and team leader at Convergence Network Solutions Limited. She's a member of Convergence Group, which is a leading IT solution systems integrator in East Africa. As a seasoned solutions architect, she brings a wealth of expertise with a strong focus on cybersecurity solutions. Erin also holds a degree in electronics engineering, specializing in technology, telecommunications, and is recognized for her commitment to delivering advanced IT solutions across various sectors. Erina is a certified information systems auditor and a project management professional with numerous industry-specific certifications. And her extensive experience, technical knowledge, and leadership skills are a credit to her shaping the technology landscape to Convergence Network Solutions, as well as Isaka. We are happy to have you moderate this session, Erina. I think from this point, let me hand over to you to moderate this session.
Thank you very much, VP Eric. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining this very, what I'm certain is going to be a very exciting session for all of us as we listen in on the new ways of doing things, and in this case, integrating machine learning in business processes. Please allow me to introduce our very auspicious guest speaker for the evening. Mr. Nestor Paul Katende is the visionary founder and CEO of Autic Foundation, a Ugandan social enterprise transforming the nation's AI ecosystem and landscape. Officially recommended by the government of Uganda as a national AI skilling implementer and educator, Autic Foundation is committed to training 1 million Ugandans in AI by 2030. Under his leadership, the foundation has educated over 2,000 Ugandans so far across various institutions of learning, public and private organizations, including Uganda Communications Commission, the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs, and that is just the list that could fit on this space, and fostered an online community of more than 3,000 learners. His work empowers a generation of innovators and problem solvers, driving economic growth and establishing Uganda as a leader in responsible AI development. Before we put our hands warmly to welcome him, I'd like to remind us, please make sure to use this session to the maximum and post all your questions in the Q&A. So as you're getting ready to do that, please welcome with me, Mr. Nestor Paul Katende. Thank you. Paul, over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor, it's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you so much. Isaka Kampala chapter, it's an honor. Good evening to those of us in Uganda and those of us who are outside of the country, wherever you are, good evening. It's an honor, it's a pleasure for me to be here. Again, I want to thank the Isaka Kampala chapter for the opportunity to talk about artificial intelligence, a very critical topic in our time, in our dispensation right now. I think this is going to be a very, very informative session that we're going to have today. I thank the administration, the VP who gave us a wonderful talk, and also Irina, thank you so much as well for the introduction. I'm going to just jump straight in. I think we shall have a Q&A later as per the program. But I'm going to share a PowerPoint slide. And I think, Irina, you help me just confirm if it's going to be seen. And then we'll have a wonderful session in this regard. Thank you. Irina, could you just confirm with me? Let me just share my screen a bit. Irina, you could
Nothing yet.
I think Brenda could give me access to share the screen. Yeah, thank you. Oh, yes, I'm going to share right now. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just see how I can just present that. Irina, could you kind of confirm with me if the screen is visible? Thank you.
It is. It is.
Oh,
please proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. And again, I want to take this opportunity to welcome everybody on this webinar. Today, we are going to look at integrating machine learning in business processes. And I think this is going to be a very comprehensive topic because I loved the topic. The topic is integrating machine learning and not necessarily, not just AI. And I'm going to give a very good distinction between AI and machine learning just to give people a thought process. A lot of people think that AI is machine learning, but machine learning is kind of different from AI. AI is a subset of machine learning, is a subset of AI, and I'm going to explain that in a few. Ladies and gentlemen, as that's why I'm a team. I think I shared my video. We are on a mission of skilling 1 million Ugandans by 2013, raising at least 1 million AI talents. We are working very closely as well with the Ministry of ICT and other partners here in the country and others globally, W3 Schools, Data Science Network, and other organizations that are working with US Africa initiatives to see that we empower our country and build the AI ecosystem in the country. And I think it has been something that is at the core of our heart, at the core of our mission, in first of all, championing skilling and awareness in Uganda, building the AI ecosystem here, infrastructure development of artificial intelligence, and as well as having a strong background in AI advocacy. I'll talk about OTIC a little bit later. But that is what we are doing in the country so far as well. I think last month we graduated about 133 Ugandans in artificial intelligence skills. Right now, we're also running a few cohorts that I will talk about later. So I want to thank the ISACA chapter for inviting me here today. Thank you. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to look at AI. We're going to look at machine learning and integrating machine learning in business processes. And just to give us a whole a general picture, a high-level picture of what artificial intelligence is. Basically, AI, just for everybody, because I'm confident of the fact that not everybody on this webinar is of the same level of expertise. So allow me to speak to people who are just getting into the field, and a little bit, I'll dash a little bit into some of us who are a bit more technical in the field. So I'm gonna have a blend, a cocktail or a cocktail conversation, I should say, both for us who are into the field a little bit in technical aspects, but also some of us who are new to the field, who feel like AI is gonna take their jobs. So basically, AI is very simple. The word is artificial intelligence. The opposite is true, human intelligence. And basically, let me give you a typical example where I always speak about when we are doing some of these trainings is when a child is growing up from the age of 0 to, let's say, 5 years or 3 years, for those of us who have children, the brain of that child begins to learn. One of the ways it begins to learn is by one observation. When a baby is growing, they learn by repetition, right? That's why when they go to school in kindergarten, they begin to speak A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And they rhyme the alphabet, they rhyme the words, they rhyme the letters 1, 2, 3, 4. They begin to train the brain through repetitive action. And so when the brain is exposed repetitively, it gets to a point whereby it now begins to pick nuances and patterns in these letters and words, letters and numbers to a point where now it will have sort of an intelligence to say, now you used to say A, B, C, D, but when you say boy, the brain is able to say that this is B-O-Y. It has matured because it has been exposed to a repetitive pattern of a process or a cycle. When you say environment, now the brain has matured to a place where to say E-N-V-I-R-O-N-M-E-N-T. So that is the same process, basically. So what AI is basically artificial intelligence. These are, I want to use some bit of technical terms, but I'll balance it a little bit as we move on. Basically AI, these are, let me say algorithms, okay, let me say technologies, okay, let me say algorithms or code, and I'll explain that a little bit later, that have been exposed to data, okay? And when they're exposed to data, they are able to pick particular patterns and nuances from this data. For example, let me give you an example. I can see there's a friend of mine here, a good friend of mine called Maurice Taremwa, and others here. For example, if Maurice, let's say, supports Arsenal, and Nesta supports Arsenal, I'm actually an Arsenal supporter. Arsenal supporters are usually very zealous. We are very patient people. We are very long-suffering, I should say. So when you sum up all Arsenal supporters, you're able to pick a particular nuance and a pattern, you know, of Arsenal supporters. You get what I'm talking about. So it's able to pick patterns and similarities from Arsenal supporters. Okay, let's say generally, okay? And then it's able to derive a particular insight. And that derivation of a particular insight is that intelligence I'm talking about. That after exposing it to data and it's studying the data, that those patterns it's picking, that's what they call that intelligence. That's intelligence, okay? And so, for example, when you look at ChatGPT, ChatGPT is simply a product. ChatGPT from OpenAI, it's a product that is it's a language model that has been exposed to conversational data. Okay, how people respond, how people talk to each other, how they reply messages, so it was exposed to this bunch of data, conversational data, and then from that it's able to pick particular insights and patterns on how to respond when you're speaking to it. So as you're speaking to it, it responds to you back like a human being, right? But those are just human nuances. It's just because it has been trained repetitively over a long period of time that now it can be able to respond to you sort of like a human being, but it's not a human being. It is simply an algorithm or technology that has been exposed to data. Now take it that to the different types of data sets, whether it is imagery, vision, computer vision, take it to algorithms that have been exposed to images, algorithms that have been exposed to, data which has images or data which has finance and all that. That is simply AI. The interface you see, for example, when you open your app, that is simply an interface. It is simply what you see on your laptop or your computer. But behind that are algorithms or code that has been exposed to particular lines of data. So the more it is exposed to this data, ladies and gentlemen, the more it begins to become a bit more intelligent. And by intelligence, I say pick insights and patterns, predict, and do all these sorts of amazing things. That's what they call intelligence. And I can say right now, AI is very much in its infant stage, and I think this is a very important conversation to have right now. We are scaling into artificial general intelligence. We are scaling into singularity AI. I don't know if you have heard about that. Many, many things. Some people are predicting that AI is going to have sort of AI sentient, where it's going to have some of by AI sentient, I mean AI is going to have sort of a kind of an emotional attachment to intelligence. There's a lot of predictions later we shall jump into. So basically, I want to run through this path because I want us to jump into what machine learning is. As you can see in the first slide, an AI is, like I said, the bigger picture is that AI is not just a product or service. AI is an industry revolution. AI is determining is determining cash flow right now in this dispensation. It's determining government system and structures. It's the bedrock technology of the fourth industry revolution that we're in right now. The first industry revolution, an industry revolution was a period of time in human existence that had particular technologies that defined human society in that time, right? For example, when you look at the first industry revolution, the key technology during this time was the steam engine. So the steam engine, of course, there are others here. For example, you have the steam engine here. majorly it was a steam engine around this time, around the 18th century. And mechanization of production, part factories, textile mills. Basically, human society and work was defined around the steam engine. Even curricula in universities were defined around the steam engine, because the governments of that time had to release a workforce that was relevant in that time. They had to have something around the steam engine. So the steam engine defined work, defined society, defined, exchange of commerce and all that. Fast forward, the world moves on into the second industrial revolution. Here we have, this is also called, those of you who have read something, it's called the Age of Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment was around the 19th century. And this is where you have a burst, literally a burst, an avalanche, let's say a volcano of technologies that were and inventions around this time. But key to this, the major technologies around that time was Nikola Tesla, electricity, railroads. Here, that's where you have Andrew Carnegie, where he was the progenitor of the steel manufacturing industry here. Of course, Graham Bell, the telegraph, and I think something I didn't add here was the combustion engine, where Mercedes-Benz came through, and Ford. These technologies define again workflow. They defined again commerce. They defined government systems and structures. They even defined warfare around this time, because it's important that governments had to be relevant. This is what determined whether a government was a superpower or not, determined the strength of a country. That means that industries and countries had to evolve past the first into the second. Even curricula had to evolve, because if curricula did not evolve, that means they will not produce a workforce that is relevant to the second industrial revolution, ladies and gentlemen. So that means if you had a degree based on the first industrial revolution, and you have a PhD and a professor doctorate based on the curriculum of the first industrial revolution, you would have your certificate, but you will not be relevant in the second industrial revolution, because the workforce, the marketplace currently in the second industrial revolution would not need you. You will not be relevant. You will not fit in. So there had to be a constant adaptation and evolution of society to be relevant in that time. Fast forward, third industrial revolution, just after Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombarded here, we have the digital communication revolution that started around this time. That's why you have the Jeff Bezos, you have the Alibabas of Jack Ma. You have the very conversation of the internet around that time begins to pick up. Even around this time, that's where actually Alan Turing, one of the founding fathers of AI, begins this conversation of artificial intelligence. You read about Alan Turing, those of you who want to go a bit deeper here. So the very conversation of computers and semiconductors, internet begins around this time. So it means that the world economy had to change drastically again. Digitization was the order of the day. The very coin of the word, global village, begins to come up, that I can talk to someone in Indonesia, I can have a conversation with someone in Kuala Lumpur, in Brazil, in the US, downtown, Cape Town, South Africa, and we'll go up in Iceland. The global village conversation, the very early stages of early computing, digital transformation across the industry, the rise of the information age. Now, imagine you have a degree based on the third industrial revolution of electricity and the telegram and railroads. You graduated with a wonderful PhD, professor. But you see, if you are not relevant here, if you have that curricula here in the third industrial revolution, you will not have a job. Okay, maybe you will have a job, but you will not have bargaining power over how much you should be paid. Because how would you have bargaining power of something that has been disrupted? Do you see what I'm talking about there? So curricula in universities also had to change, so that they may release a workforce that could understand this early computing, that could understand semiconductors, that could understand computers. Maybe yes, electricity was a bedrock technology, was maybe a foundation, but this was important because for countries to stay ahead of the curve, for organizations not to be disrupted, to stay ahead of the competition, they had to shift quickly and adopt. Otherwise, they'll be left behind, and another person will come in, speak the language of the time and move on. Because the language of the engineering in the 20th century is not the language of engineering in the 18th century. You see that the language of medicine in the 20th century is not the language of medicine in the 18th century. There had to be an evolution. So ladies and gentlemen, the fourth industrialization very fast begins around 2011. Of course, Alan Turing had begun this already, but the world again begins to shift. It begins to shift. And of course, because of the information overload, the digital communication evolution, there was a lot of data. And so AI begins to pick pace. Because remember, Alan Turing, one of the founding fathers, already began this conversation. But when data is getting into the space and storage is here, computers are there, that gave a catalyst to the rise of AI quickly, earlier and faster because of the data that came through. That's why now you have artificial intelligence. Internet of Things, robotics, big data. So now, what's happening right now is that artificial intelligence, more than just ChatGPT, ladies and gentlemen, because some people think that AI is simply ChatGPT or Gemini AI. Artificial intelligence right now is literally defining society right now. It's literally disrupting, it's literally redefining and rewriting the story of business, it's rewriting the story of medicine, rewriting the story of engineering, rewriting the story of education in this age, in this dispensation as we are right now. Therefore, it's important for us to have this conversation right now if businesses, if companies, if conglomerates are to remain relevant in the next 20, 40 years, because the competition right now is extremely tight. And so that's why I'm also saying that when they say that jobs don't exist and there's an unemployment rate north of 80% in Uganda, we are saying that it's not that jobs don't exist. Very simple. The jobs evolve. The jobs of the 19th century are not the jobs of the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen. The language of engineering as of 2024 is not the language of engineering as of 1970. You cannot graduate with a curricula of 1970 in 2024 and expect to be relevant and expect to have bargaining power over how much you should be paid. Because I believe you should be paid based on the relevance you bring to that organization as opposed to the time you give it. That's what they call power. That's what they call relevance. That's what they call a consultant. A consultant is paid based on relevance, based on value, not simply based on time because I work for you 8 to 5, therefore you pay me. You need to be paid based on the value you give to that organization or based on what you bring on the table. This, when a person speaks the language of the time, they will always be ahead of the curve. And the language of the time right now, ladies and gentlemen, is the fourth industrial revolution. If a business is to stay ahead of the curve, it should integrate ML in its business processes. Otherwise, they will not be able to beat the competition. And I think we are going to look at that. AI, talking about AI simply, it's a branch of computer science that focuses on creating systems capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as understanding language and recognizing patterns, problem solving, and all that view. So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look at this slide. And I want to talk about a little bit about Uganda. For example, Uganda's AI adoption index, and I want to come into ML very shortly, but let me give you a debrief of Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, Uganda is really behind in this conversation, and that's the truth. According to the global standards, according to the Government AI Readiness Index 2023, the next one is coming out, I think, next month or two. Uganda is at 35.5% of readiness. That is below the African average, because there are very many factors that we need to consider as well. And we created a small pie chart here for you. And that readiness is based on three things. One, government. In government, we talk about vision. We talk about government and ethics. We talk about digital capacity and adaptability. By vision, we need the Uganda artificial intelligence framework and policy quickly. We need the policy and framework that will guide the implementation of AI across the different sectors of the economy, in finance, agriculture, and education. Without a policy and framework from above, it is very difficult for organizations and partners, private partners in these different sectors to implement AI as they should be. Because without a framework, you don't have infrastructure. Without a framework, you don't have, there's a lot in there, right? It's hard for different players in the education system to have a direction if there's no guiding policy, national policy or framework. Two, data infrastructure. We're looking at data representativeness. We're looking at data availability and data infrastructure in the country. When we look at technology sector, what is the maturity of Uganda's tech sector? What is our innovation capacity? And that's our human capital, skilling and awareness. Are people skilled? Are people up to date? Allow me to say this, ladies and gentlemen. The conversation of digital skills, I think, should be rethought because the digital skills of the third industrial revolution, ladies and gentlemen, are not the digital skills of the fourth industrial revolution. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, simply building a website is not enough. Simply building a website is simply not enough. It doesn't cut the game. In a space we are talking about quantum computing, nanotechnologies, we need to advance the conversation of digital skills for those of us who are in the digital skills arena. And that's a conversation we shall have deeper probably next time. Look at the statistics, ladies and gentlemen. State of AI adoption in Uganda, external environment, and environment scan. Government, of course, we have the AI task force that we established this year. We are doing something around 38%. Tech sector, yeah, we are growing innovation capacity and AI expertise. OTIC is trying to do that. ISAC is doing that as well through these info sessions and webinars. We are 21%, ladies and gentlemen, as the country. Data infrastructure, data and infrastructure, 41%, but of course we still need more a little bit there because we need availability of these data sets. Like I said, if for example, if you cannot say that you're building an AI based on Uganda's context if you're not using localized data sets. It doesn't cut it. If you're using data sets from databases in California, that is that product, but it's not built based on Uganda's context. And I think that's a conversation we shall also have later, ladies and gentlemen. So the conversation of digital skills is very passionate to me, ladies and gentlemen, because I think we need to redefine that. I think we need to be a little bit more aggressive as a country, especially when it comes to skills. Some of these things should be introduced early to our young people so that they're exposed early enough, they know what to do. And I think that's something we shall talk about later in the next slides. So AI has subsets, ladies and gentlemen, and one of the subsets is machine learning. And that's what we're going to focus on. But just to give you a high level view, machine learning is just among the subsets of artificial intelligence. One of them, so machine learning enables systems to learn from data and improve over time without explicit programming, e.g. predictive analysis and recommendation engines. Now we shall talk about that later. That's the gist of the topic. Another subset of AI is natural language processing, right? It enables machines to understand and generate human language, e.g. chatbots, language translation, and sentiment analysis. We shall talk about that there. For example, your ChatGPT is under the subset of natural language processing. Like I said, these are simply algorithms that are exposed to conversational data. Computer vision, as you can see here, is also among the subsets, allows computers to interpret and make decisions based on visual inputs like images and videos, facial recognition. For example, you see your facial recognition on your phone is actually an AI, right? We shall also talk about deep learning, but deep learning is a subset of ML, okay? It's a subset of machine learning. Here we're using neural networks with multiple layers, mimicking human brain structure, e.g. image, speech recognition. That's deep learning is just under machine learning. That's also another conversation we shall have. Robotics also combines AI and engineering to build intelligent machines that perform tasks, e.g. manufacturing robots in factories and autonomous drones. That's also something that I think you have seen Sophia, the robot and all that. Expert systems, AI systems designed to mimic human expertise in specific domains, in medical diagnosis tools, financial advisory payment systems. All that is AI. AI is a really, really wide subject, and there are others which we have not spoken about in that regard. So let's talk about ML. So basically, ML, ladies and gentlemen, is like we said, maybe if I can just go back here, it simply enables systems to learn from data and improve over time. So basically, what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is that when, for example, I expose, let me just try to break it down to the granular level. When I get these algorithms from the foundation I've given us, when I get data and expose it to these algorithms or systems, okay, is that these systems are able to learn, and are able to pick these nuances and automatically begin to pick insights without your human interaction. I think a case study one time, something that really intrigued me one time is when, I don't know if even some of us have read about it or seen a video around it, when some of the engineers at Google built two AI robots that began speaking to each other in languages the engineers did not understand. They began communicating to each other. Let me give you an example. For example, I don't know if you have tried this, when you get your ChatGPT on the phone, the one you have on your phone, and then you click to that part where it begins to speak to you. I don't know if you have tried it. It's a very interesting experience. When there's that, if you have upgraded your ChatGPT, the normal ChatGPT, there's that part that has like, next to the microphone, there's that black part that has maybe like sound waves. And then you get two phones, and then you put them together, both open at the same time. And then you begin conversing. What happens is that these ChatGPTs will actually begin talking to each other. I don't know if you have tried it before. They can actually I've tried it on my phone, they can actually have a conversation for 1 hour, asking themselves questions and answering back. It's such an amazing experience. You should try it, it's a fun thing. So basically, these are systems that have been exposed to data, and then they begin to pick these nuances and then automatically begin to take themselves on. I've tried to break it down. For example, the application of ML began in finance and manufacturing. Okay. For example, here when we look at data-driven insights for strategic decisions. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper into finance and business here a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. For example, when you talk about, for example, predictive analysis, my banker, myself as well, when you talk about predictive analysis, I'm talking about, for example, I can break it down into maybe customer churning. And customer churning, I'm talking about predicting which customers are most likely to leave the bank based on a particular product or based on a particular service. Okay, so when you expose this algorithm to a particular data set, based on how customers have been, interacting with this service or banking institution, these algorithms can begin to predict that this customer is most likely to leave, and this is the product that is most likely going to put you down. And so as a business analyst, I'm able to say, you know what, I think we need to invest in this product. Should we drop this product? Should we invest more capital in this in terms of marketing? Should we take it off? Do you see? So when you expose these algorithms to data, it's able to predict based on how you model it. Okay, based on how you model it, based on how you guide the algorithms or the end result of that. We can also look at automated tasks. This is why ML matters, of course. Automating tasks and reducing costs. There's a lot around that I'm going to talk about as well. Hyper-personalization and chatbots, which I talk about, for example, even the very conversation of marketing. Those of us who are marketers here, marketing is being disrupted to a level people may not actually realize, because now we're getting into personalization. I want to market something that is unique to that individual, unique to that particular individual. And so these algorithms are able to do that. I think you have seen what Amazon is doing. You have seen what, how they're able to, you click on cookies on that website, they pick your data, they follow you up. And so the next time you go on that site, on YouTube, they're able to market something. Netflix does that, I think, those of us who have them. Fraud detection and predictive maintenance as well. So it's used in very many various places as well. Key applications of ML in business processes. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, predictive analysis, for example, use of ML to predict sale trends. You're able to predict that you're going to make a loss. You're going to hit shipwreck as an organization. And I think if this is put into perspective, you become a bit more wiser in terms of risk management and risk mitigation. I think this is very important when it comes to credit analysis, credit risk analysis, because here we're using more power. Of course, there's an aspect of the human touch comes in as well sometimes, but again, these more powerful algorithms in terms of, for example, I don't want to go so deep into the technical term. I'll come a little bit in that. These regression models are more powerful in terms of predicting risk, and so they can also advise a possible outcome or approach in abating that risk. Forecasting demand, banks in credit scoring as well. I don't know, some of us have, for example, mobile money apps. Those mobile apps that some of us have on our phones. How are they able to predict that you're able to borrow this money and you will pay it back? They simply have access to your data. When you're registering your phone, you give them access to data. So they will read through your transactions, how much you receive, how much you send, how much airtime, how much you borrow. And though that algorithm is able to predict that when Peter borrows 500,000, they will be able to pay because of that transaction pattern, ladies and gentlemen. And that is disrupting banks as we know it. That's why many banks are beginning to pick up. In Uganda, it can be a bit in and out, but I tell you, in Kenya is so good and so crazy when it comes to mobile money lending. It's crazy. The mobile money lending ecosystem in Kenya is on another level, right? And so there's a heavy competition in there. That's credit scoring. Process automation, of course, data entry, document processing, supply chain management, personalized marketing, I talked about risk management as well, use of ML for fraud detection. This is very important, especially where we are going. And of course, decision support, data-driven insight support strategic decisions and investment analysis. This is also something that is good, especially in capital markets when it comes to trading. Integrating ML steps and best practices. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about ML in business processes. So after knowing about this, how do we integrate ML? Some things are not on this PowerPoint, so I'm going to be a bit flexible. I want to look at it more from a corporate governance perspective, but also coming down to a person who doesn't really work in a company and you have your business as an individual. But let's look at this PowerPoint, ladies and gentlemen. Assess businesses and goals. Identify specific operational areas that will benefit from it as an organization. What's your strategic direction of an organization? and where is ML, what's your strategic direction, but also where's your competition, because you want to evolve quickly where your competition is at its best, as of whether you are competing or you're going for the blue ocean strategy, or you want to create your own competition in your own space. So strategic direction is very important, vision is very important as an organization in determining where ML comes in. And this is a very new topic, it's a very new conversation, so you have to be very selective. Not everything is going to work right now as of 2020. Some things may be deployed now, but they may be relevant in the next 10 years or 30. 30 years is a bit too far, but maybe next 10 years, right? What are the business needs and goals? Set clear objectives, improve customer retention. There's a lot in here. What are the objectives? If you're a banking institution, if you're a business, what are your objectives, and what are the ML systems or processes or direction that you want to deploy? Both from a depends also on how big your organization is, in that regard. Selecting the right ML models, and this is more from a technical point of view here, is also very important. I mean, determining the model types based on tasks, classification, regression, clustering. I know this is a bit more technical, but the model types, ladies and gentlemen, define your approach in terms of the direction, the outcome of your derivative when you're building some of these algorithms for your organization. I know many times for corporate organizations which have scaled over time, they are very risk aversive, so they will really want to work with vendors that have already done that in the market, especially. For example, credit scoring. If you're a banking institution, you really find itself to work with a vendor who has done credit scoring, across the board. So you want to bring them here to prevent risk. But if you start up, for example, and you're trying to build something around there, you're trying to build a small app, or you're building a small business around that, the right models based on your strategic fit are important. Data collection and management. Ladies and gentlemen, without data, it's literally impossible to have AI. And that data should be clean. That's also very important. It should be clean. It should be clean. It should be contextual. One of the reasons as to why, of course, much of doing mobile lending, one of the things that it really comes in is, for example, for organizations that have been there for a long time and they've been a bit more traditional, data cleaning is one of the hardest things that you deal with in terms of this. You can have it in one place, but is it clean? Can it be read? Won't it provide a certain bias? There's a lot in there when it comes to data collection and management. Identify data sources and ensure data quality and relevance. Data cleaning, preferences, and straight solutions. Model development and training. Build and train models using labeled data and machine learning algorithms, of course. Now, let me talk about this a bit for our technical people. This is what they call structured and unstructured data. I'm not going to be so deep in technical, but let me just touch a little bit on this. Structured data is simply data that you have in a database. It's organized for use in a DB. You're going to pull it using SQL SQL language, and then you're going to visualize, you're going to clean it, and then you're going to build a model around it. And structured data, of course, if you're going to scrape it, it's not organized. Maybe it's imagery, maybe it's audio, and all that. So the models, when we say build and train models using labeled data and machine learning models, we're trying to say that what is your approach? Are you going to deal with structured data? Are you dealing with unstructured data? And the methods, are you using supervised learning and unsupervised learning? Maybe for those ones who want to know the difference between supervised and unsupervised learning, let me just give you a definition of that for the sake of us who are a bit technical. So basically what's happening here is that supervised learning is a type of machine learning, again, where the model is trained using labeled data. It's this means that each training example has an input and output pair, okay? And the model learns to map the inputs to correct outputs. I think that is something you can do when you're having a workshop training as well in that regard. And the opposite is true. Unsupervised learning is a type of machine learning where the model is given where the model is given data without labeled responses. So the algorithm tries to learn patterns, structures, or relationships within data to own it. That's for my technical friends, just to give it a little bit of context. Testing and development. Of course, validation is very important. Cross-validation, A/B testing, especially for those of us who are into risk management and credit scoring and who are into the hardcore building of models from scratch to ensure reliability. Deployment strategies, cloud versus on-premise. Yeah, cloud is really good. For security on-premise, I think would be better, but where we're going to cloud, so that's also a debate. For some of I know there are many seniors here that will want to engage in that conversation as well. continuous monitoring, refinement, I think that is something, especially when you go to credit risk management. When you're doing stress testing, for microeconomic indicators to understand the market, that's something so important here. The credit risk analysts need to understand the models that do this very, very, very well, especially when you want to transition your corporate governance structure to fully leverage ML when it comes to credit risk management. This is very important. Of course, challenges to ML integration. Obviously, we have data quality. You have first of all, you can have structured data, but it's not clean and it's disorganized. That is also something that you need to look out for. Do you have the data as an organization? Scalability requires infrastructure and computational power. Ladies and gentlemen, AI is not cheap. If you are to have a national democratization of AI, first of all, you need a lot of power. You need electricity. I think some of you who have been watching, for example, the US elections, you have seen that one of Trump's agendas is to increase more power in the US so that it can be able to provide for their AI ambitions. So if the US is still looking in providing more power, provide for its AI ambitions where it is, I will leave that for you to think about. So the infrastructure is also very important. You need supercomputers to deploy this. Unless you're going to say you're going to build an application connected to an AI algorithm, you're going to use ChatGPT API and then build something small. But if you're building something from scratch, the infrastructure is very important, ladies and gentlemen. Change management. First of all, right from the SMT, from the senior management team of a corporate organization, they need to understand the benefits of this. If the senior management team is not appraised, if they're not updated, if they're not forward thinking, the corporate governance structure, the people there are not forward thinking, you will not have this integrated in your organization. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very important, ladies and gentlemen, because if the SMT doesn't understand, it doesn't matter what you do here as a supervisor or officer, you're going to waste a lot of time. And so again, the bias that it's going to take out, it's not going to, AI, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to take anyone's job. It's not going to, but the person who understands these skills most likely is going to take your job because they're going to understand the systems and structures. That they may take your job. Of course, they're going to be more relevant than you, ladies and gentlemen. So again, there's a lot in terms of change, adapting workforce and processes, adapting workforce. The people should understand what AI has come to do right from the SMT going down in that regard. But also, the corporate governance structure should provide for some of this. I know there's a lot in there in terms of expertise and all that, but I think it begins from a strategic direction where the governance structure understands this. Ethics and privacy, ensuring fairness and transparency and compliance is very important. Future trends in ML in business operations. There's a lot to do in here. AI-driven automation, for example, intelligent process automation for further automating back office tasks. This is very important. For example, some of us have Microsoft Copilot. I don't know if you've tried a Copilot agent. Actually, Microsoft Copilot, I think OTIC has a few trainings around there as well. It's a very powerful tool, especially when you use the Microsoft ecosystem, Teams and Outlook. I tell you, this is a very powerful thing that I think it will leave you to only having. They built Microsoft Copilot to allow a business user to only focus on strategic direction. But some of us have these systems, but we don't know how to use them. It's something that can record meetings, automatically send emails for you in your corporate organizations. It will record them, it will send the email. You can actually schedule your whole workflow using Microsoft Copilot or Microsoft AI. And then you focus on business meetings and things that take the organization forward. The reason that's why Microsoft has brought this whole ecosystem is for you to focus on strategic business decisions, to remove all that operational work. And then here we have advances in natural language processes, of course, chatbots, customer service automation, and sentiment analysis as well is very important in that regard, of course, for chatbots, as you know. But of course, maybe also, I think, let me see if I'm going to talk about it later here. Let me talk about something here even before we finish, maybe to open the Q&A, is that we have a challenge, and that challenge has always been having the expertise, the skilled workforce. Now, this what's happening is that many of the people that are coming from the universities or the different institutions of learning, and I think that's where OT comes in very strongly, is that we have people that are graduating, but they don't have the contextual thought process of the market they're entering in. Let me give you an example. You have done maybe computer science, right? You've done Python, machine learning, all that. But you see, a bank doesn't just need a computer scientist. It needs a computer scientist who understands credit. the bank needs a computer scientist who understands credit, because when you're building credit scoring algorithm, you need to have the mind of the business. Do you see that? Because you cannot predict, you cannot model what you don't understand. You understand the mind of the business. So when we are crafting some of these curricula, again, for some of our policymakers that are here or curriculum development people, is that we need to produce a workforce that is specifically relevant to where we are going, because ML is so wide. For example, you cannot just say I'm a data analyst, because I can be a data analyst in what? Data analyst in finance, data analyst in agriculture data, data analyst in even a medical practitioner can be a data analyst because they're analyzing medical data. You cannot be a generalist. So we're having very many technical generalists. They're IT people, but the fourth industrial revolution is not looking for IT people. They're looking for particular people with specific tasks. So if I'm a data analyst, I want to specify and build a niche in financial data analysis, in credit scoring data analysis. So those are the algorithms that I should focus on if I'm to hone my skills and shun my craft. As opposed to being a Python person who is a generalist, who cannot do anything. So they give you a laptop in an interview, you cannot actually do anything. You see that? So it's important. If you're in finance, focus in finance, understand model development for financial data. If you want to say, I want to go in medical data, I want to go into this data, I want to go in that data, focus on that. So that when you go, for example, in a financial institution, you are the cream de la cream, you are what they need. You speak that language straight on. You don't just say, I did IT, I did computer science, I did computer engineering. That is too wide. Because now there are nuances that are coming through. And there's a difference, ladies and gentlemen, between a data analyst and a data scientist. The difference. A data scientist is an academician. He's into researching data and coming up with new concepts. They're into research. You understand? He doesn't just do insights. He goes deeper in understanding the fragments of data, the components of data. He's a data scientist. A data analyst goes into insights and driving insights. There's a difference. We should not confuse that two. There's a difference. So you need to know where you are exactly. What are you exactly and what are you doing? So ML requires you to be a little bit more specific in what you want as an individual so that you can benefit the organization with specificity. You see what I'm talking about? So what is is it a financial institution? Yes. So my skills should be on this way. So let me focus. Unless you're going to be an academician who's going to just learn Python. And maybe Python is always updating every day. So maybe you're going to be an academician. But if you want to focus on that, focus on something that is more specific in that regard. That's what is in the skilling conversation. Please focus, because when it comes to business processes, the experts have to skill and hone a skill. Don't just say, I'm a general data analyst. That's not going to work right now. You can't be a general data analyst, because if I take you to credit analysis, I need to understand what is credit. How does a bank make money? How does it transact? What are recoveries? I'm speaking from a banking perspective. Okay. Predictive analysis and smart insights, in-house forecasting and techniques, more accurate demand planning. Maybe you'll see me talking about this. We need to have a conversation around, I know it's a long term, but we need to have a conversation around businesses working with universities to have, a symbiotic relationship for some of the graduates that are in universities. And this is done across the world. You see, this is very, very important that our people, there's a symbiotic relationship. So that people don't look for jobs. What I'm doing in this organization, can I work with this institution so that I get people direct to fit in? Because what we are lacking specificity. It's the general degree that doesn't have specificity. It's simply IT. There's nothing as IT. IT, maybe that was the third industrial revolution of 1950. That's where you are. Right now we're in 2024. It's the fourth industrial revolution. And so the conversation of building in-house development teams for organizations is very important. I know there's a risk in investing in people, but that's where we have to go at the end of the day. If you are to have localized language models, localized systems, we need to train our people and provide whatever we need to build these algorithms and these systems from scratch in Uganda for the Ugandan market. That is very important if you're to have the real results of AI products and services, machine learning products and services that speak to the Ugandan person, that solve problems for the Ugandan. It should be built here using localized data in our own in-house development teams. So, ladies and gentlemen, ML in business processes begins one from corporate governance. The SMT and the people that in charge should understand this very, very, very well. They should understand where the future is going. You should understand where your business is strategically. Number two, the skill set is also very important. People should be skilled and that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we as OTIC, I talked about that. We're doing a lot of AI skilling and that, and we're doing a lot of AI skilling in the country. We have a few courses that we partner with W3 Schools, which is the biggest web developer platform in the whole world. Of course, W3 Schools, and providing certifications at only 240,000 for someone to skill in artificial intelligence and all the skills. Someone will get a certificate in Python, SQL, NumPy, Pandas, R, and data analytics at only 240,000. W3 Schools is our partner. The curriculum is global. We're also launching something for the senior 6 vacates and senior 4 vacates that are coming out, so that when they come into university, they will make better decisions. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to me. There's a lot to touch in through. Allow me to open the Q&A in the next 15 minutes for us to have this conversation. Maybe we could have a few questions. Irina could help me with some of them. There's a lot to share. It's a very huge conversation. I wanted to balance technical and general, but I think the rest can be handled in different arenas. Thank you. Irina, back to you. Thank
you so much, Nesta. That was a very passionate call that you've put out to us. It reminded me of a conversation I once listened to, a talk being given by the former CEO of IBM, Ginny Rometty, where she, the way you've likened it to the 1, 2, 3, 4 of the industrial revolutions, she spoke about it in the way from IBM's perspective as having moved from counting machines to computers and now to cognizance. And while, you had mentioned you would speak on sentience at some point, I hope we'll certainly get an opportunity to hear more from you. I'd like to open this up to for questions, Q&A. There's one question right now. It comes from Victor Tinker, and it goes, how do we strike a balance between data protection and AI usage or integration?
Irina, just ask it for me again.
How do we strike a balance between data protection and AI usage or integration? Yes.
Well, of course, maybe just to answer that very quickly, I want to approach it from a strategy perspective. Data protection and data usage primarily must begin from the conversation of having a policy and a framework. I think when it comes to the Ugandan perspective, it's going to be a bit difficult. And I'm looking at it from a national perspective here. It will be a bit difficult to have a concrete data protection conversation without a national policy to guide that, because the policy is a high-level document. The framework is the actual implementation of how that's going to happen in the different sectors of the economy. So, again, I will start from that conversation. I think we need to deliberately have a conversation right now as a country. Ladies and gentlemen, Egypt has a national AI policy and framework. Rwanda has a national AI policy and framework. South Africa has one. Nigeria launched the first draft, I think, 2 months ago. Kenya is in the process of doing that. Uganda has to have that conversation. So, to answer that question quickly, I think the balance can be answered. I've encountered this question numerous times, but the balance is tricky without a guiding document and framework. I think it should begin from there in that regard. Thank you. Irina?
Right. Yes, thank you as well. Please, the room is open for any questions. There is a question from Jennifer Rose, a duo that goes, share the insights or content of AI training that your organization offers.
Okay, I don't know how I should share. Should I put it in the chat or probably? But maybe yes, we are doing a lot of AI skilling. We have first trained about 2,500 Ugandans. We do AI skilling. We're providing a globalized international certification in artificial intelligence at a subsidized fee at only 240,000 shillings because we are partnering directly with W3 Schools. The CEO is actually part of OTIC, Thomas robotic. So we wanted to bring this in the African market because a lot of time we wanted to bring an international curricula into the Ugandan market at a very subsidized fee for anybody to have the expertise. As you can see here, Python, SQL, NumPy and Pandas and Python frameworks that help you in building predictive analysis and all that I've been talking about. And all those 6 certificates, ladies and gentlemen, come in 240,000. You get 6 certificates plus a general certificate as a certified data analytics developer. You will then now begin to niche and contextualize in your field. Like I said, you have to be. So just go to Otic Foundation Academy at academy.oticfoundation.org, or you can simply send me a WhatsApp. I can connect you on that. I've just put my number in the chat. Thank you.
All right, there is a comment in the chat from Jokonia that says, this is a really great presentation. At the rate the markets are developing and the speed of execution needed to meet SDGs, guard against cybercrime, etc., this presentation is needed at AU, ECOWAS, SADC, and ESC levels. This is really great, and I, being a process efficiency model developer in Botswana, feel honored. I wanted to pass that on to you. I'd like to ask, that we have, if there are any other questions, and yes, there are a few other questions that are coming through. From Jokonia again, this is a question. This is really mind-boggling. And I wonder how Modi from an Indigenous Knowledge Point can be a partner. I have already been a speaker at the Isaka Harare chapter event last month in Victoria Falls. I really feel like a partner already. Jokonia, I feel this is a statement, but thank you for it. So Catherine Niwagawa asks, in your experience, what AI ethical issues do you envisage that we shall have to contend with?
Well, of course, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I think AI ethical issues it's really wide based on the industry. For example, there's a lot around plagiarism. There's a lot around transparency, for example. Let's first look at the core principles of AI ethics. First of all, transparency is very important. AI systems should be understandable and explainable. Users should know how AI decisions are made, especially for high-stakes applications in healthcare, law, and finance. You just want to get people's data and then use it how you want. Transparency is very important. And a guiding policy and framework is what will define that across the sectors of the economy. Number 2, fairness and non-description. AI should avoid biases that unfairly impact specific groups based on race, gender, or socioeconomic status. Fairness and non-discrimination is very important. Ensuring that AI systems are trained on diverse representative data is essential to achieving this, ladies and gentlemen. And that goes into a lot in credit scoring. How do you come up with those algorithms? Number 3, privacy. Those are the core principles. I'm getting them from my experience. Privacy is among the core principles of ethical AI. AI systems, ladies and gentlemen, often rely on vast amount of personal data, like we know, making privacy a key ethical consideration. So that means, ladies and gentlemen, it's crucial to protect individuals' data and give them control over how their data is used. Another one I would say offhand would be accountability. Developers and organizations should be accountable for AI systems outcomes. For example, there should be a national AI regulation body. This means implementing systems to monitor and address any issues or harm AI might cause. And where we are going, AI is going to be something else if we don't control it very, very well. Human control and autonomy, is among the core principles, I would say. AI should support human decisions and not replace human judgment. That is very, very, very important. AI should support human decisions and not replace human judgment. Much as we are going to ML, we are also allowed to do ML in business processes. Never forget the human touch, that human perspective, that human nuance that gives it the human. So it means that ensuring we should ensure that AI complements human capabilities without compromising personal autonomy is vital. Otherwise, we're going to literally lose it. Security, lastly. AI systems should be protected from manipulation, hacking, or malicious use to prevent harm. So each of these principles is essential in building trust in AI and ensuring it aligns with ethical standards that respect human rights and societal building. And again, the policy and framework is the guiding document for all these 5 components. Thank you.
All right, well said. Question from Jennifer Rose. How can Uganda leverage AI potential to leverage youth unemployment in Uganda?
Thank you so much for that. Number one, let's demystify the AI into skill. How can I use AI to get a person who has not been getting zero to get 1,000, to get $1, to get money, to have a livelihood, to take care of their families? So much as we're demystifying regression and algorithm and supervised and unsupervised learning, there's a child who has left school, he has dropped out. How can they use ChatGPT? How can they use Gemini AI to design flyers using AI and videos, and they build a business out of it, and they get an extra dollar to look after their family and their children? So what we're trying to say as OTIC, that the conversation of digital skilling should change. We are training people how to design flyers using artificial intelligence. We are training people how to use it to do content development and apply for online jobs and get money. So we want the conversation of AI to solve jobs now. We don't want to leave it in conferences and teas and coffees and SCs. We want to take it there in downtown and get the unemployed youth and take it in the markets and take it in northern Uganda and say, when you get this, it doesn't matter your background because it's an industry evolution. Let's, for example, generative AI. We train generative AI in content development. In AI, we have a program called AI for Creatives. They're using AI to design flyers, do videos. We're having a practical approach to solve results, to get impact and results now, physically now. So unemployment in AI is that, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't just stop on the laptop or computer. You can actually use generative AI and prompt engineering to actually make money and apply for online jobs and be a freelancer for yourself. It doesn't mean that everybody who goes into AI must work for an organization. Well, you can go there, but actually you can build a brand for yourself. One of the things I always say is that leverage, and listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, leverage on what AI can do and do what it can't do and build a brand for yourself. In other words, if AI is good at prompting, I can become a prompt engineer. I can build a brand around that. There's a website here of a guy who I like so much. I've said in the group, he has a website called promptbase.com. There. If you go to promptbase.com, this gentleman here is actually selling prompts, and people are buying prompts. Those words you put in ChatGPT, he's selling those words for business proposals. He's selling those words if you want to market whatever. He's selling words at $3, $4, $5. And he's making money for himself. So when we need to bring artificial intelligence skilling at the center of digital skilling and unemployment in Uganda, that's where the niche is going to be, and that's where the impact is going to be. Thank you.
All right, question from David. How can AI initiatives work around the limitations of small unstructured data sets in Uganda for building models and solutions specific to Uganda to meet SDGs?
Well, of course, we have a challenge of data in the country, and that's a very relevant question. The person who has asked is that, well, I think what you're going to do right now until we have some of these infrastructures set place, you're going to look for the data. You're going to look for the data. You're going to do a little bit of data collection, and then that's usually the price. If you don't have a reconciler, if you don't have a warehouse where that is where you're going to do that, you're going to go out there and collect the data for yourself, augment it together, bring it together, and build your algorithms around that. So the price is that you have to actually pay the price to collect data for the particular project and direction of your company or strategy that you're going. Or you're going to work with partners or companies that have this data, and probably you're going to have such a partnership around that for localized data sets. Like I said, if you want to build something contextual for the Ugandan market, you need to use localized data sets, because AI is simply garbage in, garbage out. What you give it is what it will give you. It will begin to have those. It trains on what you give it. Okay, so that's really the price, especially from the Ugandan sector. So whether you're going to partner with partners which have this data and they practice these core principles, or you have to pay the price and actually collect the data and go on until we have a warehouse for us to be able to collect that and build that. So the limitations around that are really immense, and I really understand where you're coming from. Thank you.
All right, I'm still open for questions, but while we're here, I want to draw on a comment you had made with regards to America and Trump's position that he wants to focus on energy generation.
Yes.
What do you foresee as the marriage between adoption of AI at a more advanced level, especially for Africa, and conversations around environmental sustainability and environmental ethics as those apply?
That is a very broad question. I think you saw in March, January, the African Union released the African Union Artificial Intelligence Adoption Strategy and Framework. I've read that very well a couple of times, back cover to cover, actually, and I think it's a very granular framework. Sadly, not very many African countries that have actually gone for the implementation of that. But let's just be realistic. Uganda is not Silicon Valley. Uganda is not Silicon Valley. And so that means that the tech ecosystem in the country is very, very different when it comes to the Ugandan context. What I'm saying is that we need to have, first of all, the political will. We should have it here in the country so that we attract the investment. We need billions of dollars to actually do some of these things in the country. This is a serious endeavor. This requires massive investment. It requires massive investment in energy generation. And one of the things we are doing, Irina, is that as OTIC, we are trying a lot in terms of in having AI advocacy. We work with the American Center here, the US Embassy here in the country, and we've been having monthly dialogues on artificial intelligence. We are trying to bring the public sector and the private sector on one round table and say, guys, government, you provide the platform. We are here as the private sector to actually implement this. Can we work together and get something done? That's very important. So again, the political will and having those private-public partnerships to have manifestation on ground and results on ground is very, very important. And understanding where we're coming from. I think you saw our neighbors, Kenya, partnered with Microsoft. I think it was $1.8 billion or $1 million that have been invested. And I think I've seen Kenya's doing a great job. They're building East Africa's first AI hub. A lot of investment. So I think from our policymakers, we need to be very strategic in attracting the investments. One of the things I always say is when we say buy Uganda, build Uganda, we can also say invest in AI, invest in Uganda, because this is where the country is going. You understand? We like agriculture is doing great for the country, coffee is doing great for the country, and we use other things. But AI is the future. We need to have a conversation around attracting the right investment of artificial intelligence in the country. That's very important as well. We need to have a deliberate conversation around bringing this in the country, because that's where the help is. If you are to have a national impact and not just having a small session here and another small session there, we need to have a deliberate strategic direction. Look at the artificial intelligence strategy of Dubai. I mean, they have a strategy. They even have a minister of artificial intelligence. They have a ministry of the future. You understand? That should be a forward-thinking. That's a forward-thinking government. That's a forward-thinking conversation in that regard. So the mindsets of people in these conversations who have access to actually cause impact should be refined and should be reformed, because we don't have time as Africa, ladies and gentlemen. We are fast. I know Uganda Africa always leapfrogs, they say. We always leapfrog in technology, but now we don't have the luxury of time. I think we're out of time. And I think one of the things that are going to bring in heavy investments and increase Uganda's GDP, increase cash flow, solve unemployment is this conversation with AI. So there's a lot in there in terms of strategic partnerships, public-private conversations, and roundtable discussions, and giving the freedom to the public sector to run and implement them. Political will is very important. Skilling of, there's a lot in there. I think that can be a broad conversation we have. But I think with such conversations like Isaka that we're having right now, I think the country is and I was so happy when I was invited here. I think the country is on a great trajectory. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have just a few more questions left and a few minutes before this segment can close. I'll go very quickly. Calvin asks, you mentioned the need for a complete redesign of AI and ML for Uganda's scene in order for it to benefit the country. What is your take on transfer learning? Wouldn't that be a more straight-through approach, leveraging technologies existent and simply adding to them?
I think we can. Yeah, please.
Can I take them all at once, or
please,
you still want to? All right. Okay. The second one is from Solomon. He asks, how do we leverage AI at the illiterate level, given they make up the biggest part of the population? I'm going to assume that in this case, he's speaking of literacy from the perspective of understanding and appreciation of AI. Yes. And then Susan asks, we have AI engineers who don't seem to be needed in the country. How do you make use of such people who are already who are ready to join the cause of championing AI in Uganda. Right? Over to you.
Thank you. I think my brother was about transfer learning. I think both can do. We can always have that conversion transfer learning. And I think leveraging what's already existent and then working with that, I think that's the direction, probably you correct me, that's the direction you're talking about. I think that also works. And I think that's something that we can also take on, but we need to be deliberate about that as well. We need to be deliberate. If we are going in that direction, that's something we need to be deliberate about. But again, for sustainability later, we need to have the conversation of actually having this in-house, having this established here, having giving as many people access to this conversation and being skilled in this. Yes, transfer learning is there, especially when it's coming into the country, and but again, we need to build the infrastructure when it comes to sustainability. For me, sustainability in the AI conversation when it comes to skilling is very important. So I will agree with both, but for a long-term sustainability of having the base of having this done here, we need to and scalability, we need to start the conversation here in the country. And as well, like I said here, when you talk about, for example, the next question was AI learning for the illiterate. I think the literate, one of the things we always talked about when it came to OTIC, when we were starting OTIC, is that we were saying AI is for everyone, regardless of whether you have a Python degree or you did computer science or probably even did music. This is an industry revolution, meaning even if I did not go to school and I can understand basic English or whatever language you understand, you have a part to play. You have a part in the cake. You can actually contribute and make a living for yourself. And that is why, for example, you saw as OTIC, we are working. We have started conversation with the Presidential Skilling Initiative here in the country, Uganda, working with Dr. Mirembe Katana. And you know what? We are taking skilling to young people who are in the slums. We're going to skill young people in the slums, people who are forgotten, people who did not have a chance for life, who did not have an opportunity to go to university. And we are skilling them in generative AI, computer engineering. This is someone who didn't have any background whatsoever. They don't even have a laptop, they have a phone. And you're telling them this phone that you have can actually make you get a living, because AI is an industry revolution. It is not just a product. And so we are saying that we are actually demystifying this conversation of AI to the minutest person who didn't have an opportunity to go to school. It is possible. We have done it and we have seen results. And AI for the literate is actually there. A person doesn't need to have a conversation or a background in anything. Why? Because for us, we understood that this is the bedrock. Lastly, AI engineers not in the country. I think, that's interesting, because you see, we have, I think it's a globalized village. I think you can begin to apply for some of the online jobs. Obviously, sometimes many organizations may not have the corporate infrastructure to take you in. You understand what I'm talking about? They may not have the corporate infrastructure, or they may not have the departments to take you in sometimes, because again, I'm saying this is a really new conversation in the country. So you may not have very many people who are literally going to take you in with your expertise, but that should not be a limit. There are different online jobs you can apply for. Why? Because AI has leveled the pedestal. Whatever, if you know something in Beijing, China, I know it. You know something in Kuala Lumpur, in California, in San Francisco, in Australia, I know it, because we are at the same level. We speak the same language. So I think you can apply for some online jobs there. I've seen some of my friends who have done them. You can go on Fiverr. Build your brand. What this is what I know is that as long as a man is speaking the language of their industry in this age, they are relevant. You can't lack. Why? Because there's a demand of this expertise in the country right now. You don't give up hope. Maybe the country is not ready for you, but the world is ready for you. The country may not be ready for you, but the world is ready for you, because you are speaking the language that the world needs. The demand is there. So I think just continue building your brand. Just take it on. I mean, build your craft. Chan, like I said, don't be a generalist. Specify in something. If it's neural networks, if it's computer vision, specify, chan your craft in there, and that craft shall open for you doors. So if the country is not ready, the world is ready. It's a globalized village. And I think that's how I will answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to sneak one last one in. You have 5 seconds. What is your take on leveraging cloud computing to drive the AI agenda?
Pardon, Nerine, on that?
What is your take on leveraging cloud computing to drive the AI agenda?
I think I think cloud computing is a very powerful direction. But again, you need the infrastructure, you need the computing power to actually bring those here. I think that's the future. Obviously, cloud computing is the future. Of course, there's the bias around privacy, there's a bias around that's why very many risk-averse institutions don't really go for cloud computing. You rarely find many banks, especially in the country, that have cloud computing. But I think that's the future, really. That's the future in that regard. And I think that's something but when it comes to the Ugandan perspective, it's the future, but it's still a little bit